Donald Trump's memorandum of understanding with Iran may indeed bring the Iran war to an end, despite the widespread bipartisan criticism of the memorandum because it's objectively inferior to the Obama-Iran deal that Trump shredded to begin with. But while the Iran war may be on pause, the MAGA civil war rages on. And Megyn Kelly, former Fox News host, major MAGA podcaster, who earned Trump's wrath for daring to criticize him over his disastrous war, has turned the tables somewhat. It's interesting. She is now calling out Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, and Republican politicians and pundits who disagree with the Memorandum of Understanding but don't have the balls to directly criticize Trump, something that Megyn Kelly herself was accused of by those very same Republicans just a few months ago. And we have to talk about it because, again, the back and forth between Megyn Kelly and ultimately Ben Shapiro in particular continues to rage on, and it is wildly entertaining. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. As Mediaite notes, quote, "They're pussies." Megyn Kelly calls out Iran war hawks blaming Vance for deal instead of Trump. Megyn Kelly called out Iran war hawks who are blaming Vice President J.D. Vance for the controversial Memorandum of Understanding instead of Donald Trump. So let's play this clip. It's courtesy of her appearance on After Party with Emily Jashinsky, who is one of the Breaking Point's co-hosts and also one of Megyn Kelly's employees.
No, of course, Trump's joking. Trump knows that the buck stops with him, and everybody on earth knows that the buck stops with him. But it's fine. What to me, it's actually been very amusing to watch the president's critics try to lay this at the feet of J.D. Vance, because I'm just going to say it. I don't normally use this word, but they're pussies. Sorry. That's the problem here. Like, if you have a problem with the deal, just say it outright, right? It's like they won't because they're afraid of looking inconsistent. You know what I mean? Because they were so like, get him, Trump, get him, sick him, launch the war, do it. And now they're like, oh shit, we hate this. And so they don't want to say that because they've been spending the past 4 months attacking people like me and others who are President Trump's supporters, but disagreed with him on this war. And I said from the beginning, I am still a Trump supporter, but I disagree with him on this war. And they tried to turn me and many, many others into his enemies. They've turned. And so now they're so scared to be like, this sucks, we hate it, because they don't want to look like hypocrites, but we can all see right through it. We totally understand what you're doing. You're not fooling anybody. Have the balls to say how you actually feel, that you hate it, and good luck, like, not blaming it on Trump if you hate it. Even when we launched this war, people like me said, Benjamin Netanyahu talked Trump into it, but Trump had agency. Trump made the call. That's what I said. That's what many critics of the Iraq war or Iran war said. And it's actually going to be really fun to watch them jump through these hoops because they're dying for this war to go on.
Okay, you get the gist of it. What's interesting is I partially agree with her. We're going to talk about that, though. I just want you to put a pin on everything she said. She has schadenfreude about this. She's happy the war is over. And she is calling out certain cowards for being upset with this MOU, but not actually blaming the person who's ultimately responsible for it. Now, where Megyn is full of shit just right off the bat before we move on, we're going to talk about how she's full of shit in other respects later on. But this idea that Trump was joking about blaming J.D. Vance, that's bullshit. He's, of course, dead serious. Trump avoids taking accountability for things. He has a reflexive need to blame other people and deflect. Remember, he's never admitted mistakes. He's never apologized. He's always ever blamed other people and hoarded credit for himself. Of course, Trump intends to throw J.D. Vance under the bus if this backfires. It's a really stupid and dishonest thing for Megyn Kelly to suggest otherwise, but set that aside. One of the Iran hawks that she's talking about very specifically is Ben Shapiro. So remember what Megyn Kelly said. If you disagree with this MOU, you should probably blame the person ultimately in charge of the MOU. Here's what Ben Shapiro had to say on Fox News yesterday about the MOU.
Say there, Ben. Well, I've said many times, the president deciding to go into Iran and to hit nuclear facilities in Operation Midnight Hammer, and then to go after Iran's ballistic missile facilities and nuclear facilities, Army, Navy, and Air Force in this current operation was the signal act of political bravery, perhaps of my lifetime. With that said, this MOU appears to be, just from the text, a disaster that does not achieve any of the actual signal goals that were set by the administration at the beginning. There were effectively 5 goals that were set by the administration at the beginning. One was ending the nuclear program, not just nuclear weapons, no nuclear enrichment, zero enrichment. That is not in the deal. Ballistic missiles ended. That is not in the deal. And the president today suggested that ballistic missiles should actually continue to be held by the Iranians because the Saudis, our allies, also hold ballistic missiles. Then you have the support of terrorism. That is not part of the deal. Anything that looks like an attempt to end terrorism. A permanent opening of the Strait of Hormuz toll-free. Not only is that not in the deal appears to have a provision allowing Iran and Oman to attempt to toll the strait after 60 days. And then finally, the idea that Iran would receive some sort of sanctions relief after all of those things happen. We are already seeing from day one relief in their ability to ship oil out of Iran. In my opinion, the vice president of the United States, the chief negotiator on this particular project, has not well served the president.
You see what he did? He listed very articulately all the reasons why he has substantive disagreements with the MOU. Fair enough. But who did he blame at the end? J.D. Vance, the vice president, not Donald Trump, not the one who ultimately approved the deal, the one who understands that the deal is so sketchy that he didn't want to put his name on it, but ultimately did, the one who is clearly intending to scapegoat J.D. Vance if the deal goes south and take credit for it if the deal goes well. Ben Shapiro doesn't blame Trump, but blames J.D. Vance. Now, remember what Megyn Kelly said. You guys are pussies. If you have an issue with it, you should call Trump out directly. Ben Shapiro's not calling Trump out directly. But here's where the plot thickens a bit more. Earlier, when the war was raging and Ben Shapiro was happy about the state of things and Megyn Kelly wasn't, Ben Shapiro had this to say about Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Alex Jones, and other MAGA critics of the Iran war.
She is such a coward. She is such an unbelievable coward. You don't like President Trump? You don't like what he's saying? Just say his name, you coward. You unbelievable coward. Tucker and Megyn both. Unbelievable cowardice. Say his name. You won't. You won't. She is such a coward.
It's amazing. Folks, when I tell you that MAGA is just breathtakingly, like there has never been a political movement as shamelessly hypocritical and inconsistent as MAGA. It did not invent political hypocrisy. Political hypocrisy exists in the Democratic Party. It exists on the left. It's not the exclusive province of the right. But when I tell you that there has never been a movement more despicably, weaselly hypocritical, that they will say something on Monday, totally gleefully contradicted on Tuesday, and then go back to Monday on Wednesday, but then say something else entirely on Thursday, that's MAGA in a nutshell. The movement literally couldn't exist without hypocrisy. So Ben Shapiro says several months ago, all right, if you dare criticize something that Donald Trump's in charge of, if you disagree with Donald Trump, have the balls to say his name. I agree with Ben, and I called Megyn Kelly out for that because Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson were very, very, very slow to criticize Trump by name. And they were quick to criticize Benjamin Netanyahu, Ben Shapiro, Mark Levin, Trump's advisors, but they hesitated and they did often pull their punches with Trump. They were pussies. Megyn Kelly was a coward. Ben Shapiro called her out. But now Ben Shapiro's the coward, scapegoating the vice president. And Megyn Kelly is doing what Ben Shapiro just did by saying you're a coward if you disagree with Trump and don't call him out by name. Now, in the first clip, Megyn Kelly said, listen, when we disagreed with Trump, we called him out by name. It's half true. She was slow to do it. She was quicker to throw Lindsey Graham, Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, Pete Hegseth under the bus. She occasionally criticized Trump, and she did increasingly over the months. She doesn't have a spotless record here. Here is her responding to Ben Shapiro calling her a coward.
We can still have disagreements without demonizing the other people. At least I think we can. I can.
I think I have a lifetime of proving I can. I think the listeners to the show know I can, and I do often. And I'm quick to forgive small slights and move on. And this is going to dredge up a lot of disagreement. It's war. We're losing American service personnel. We have 13 dead service personnel now as a result of this war, which I definitely believe we got into because of Israel. I mean, obviously, and Trump, of course. You know, Ben Shapiro was out there saying, I'm a coward because I won't call out Trump on this. I've been calling out Trump. That's why Trump attacked me and Tucker just as soon as I said I was against the war. I don't know if you saw, I don't bring my personal drama onto the show that often, but he came out and said, I'm not MAGA, and that
Trump did eventually call her out, but he didn't call her out the moment she came out against the war. There again, that's not true. I want to be clear here. This is what I mean when I say both sides suck. When I say both sides suck, I mean both sides of MAGA here. Ben Shapiro and Megyn Kelly both suck, and they're both hypocrites, and they're both cowards, and they're both liars in their own way. When the Iran war was raging, I should say, Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly were very slow to directly blame Trump. They eventually did, but they were not honest about it at the beginning. They were so quick to scapegoat everybody else under Trump. That was cowardly and dishonest because ultimately it's Trump's fault. They eventually blamed him. Ben Shapiro was mocking them because he supported the war and opposed their criticisms and correctly called them out for their cowardice. But now the war has been halted for the time being, perhaps permanently, we'll see. And Ben Shapiro is upset with Donald Trump's decision. But rather than have the balls to blame Trump directly, as he demanded other people do just a few months ago, he's now trying to scapegoat Vice President, almost said Pence, Vance. It's not Vance's fault. That shitty deal is ultimately Trump's fault. Just like the shitty war was Trump's fault. Because the truth is, we should have never gone to war. And if we'd never gone to war, we never would have needed this disastrous memorandum of understanding where we give them $300 billion for reconstruction and an additional $200+ billion of unfrozen assets, because we still would have the JCPOA, the Obama-Iran nuclear deal. 13 American service members would be alive. 168 Iranian schoolgirls would be alive. Thousands of civilians in Iran, Israel, and Lebanon would be alive. The American people would not be languishing under skyrocketing inflation, costing them collectively billions and billions of dollars. We would not have depleted billions of dollars worth of U.S. munitions. And Iran wouldn't have a stockpile of enriched uranium that we need to be worried about, to the extent we're worried about it at all, because it didn't exist under Obama's JCPOA. See, the reason I say both sides in the MAGA civil war suck isn't just the cowardice and the hypocrisy and the dishonesty that both sides share. It's also the fact that the Democratic Party is just better. Their mutual enemy, the Democratic Party, would not and did not get us into this mess. It's their fault. It's Trump's fault. It's the Republican Party collectively. It is both Ben Shapiro and Megyn Kelly's fault. And I want to close the loop on Megyn Kelly here, okay? Now, obviously, when it came to the Iran war, I was more Megyn Kelly's side, Team Megyn, than Ben Shapiro in the sense that I thought the war was dishonest. I thought it was predicated on false pretenses, and the whole thing has been a shit show. And I would prefer a shit show ending to ongoing hot war. But the reason I'm not letting Megyn Kelly off the hook is because she says, well, you know, I still am a supporter of Donald Trump. But during the course of her criticism of Trump's war, she slowly started to take the gloves off. And she called out Trump for his corruption, for example. She would repeatedly talk about, towards the end, how flagrantly, shockingly corrupt the Trump administration and Donald Trump have been, and the Trump family. She admitted it, finally. She admitted that, wow, we shouldn't actually have been surprised that Trump said one thing and did another, because that's what Trump does. And yet now that she's getting the outcome that she wanted with respect to this war, she's basically doing a reverse Ben Shapiro. Now she's like, oh, I'm still a supporter of Donald Trump. He started a war that you oppose. Again, all of the casualties that I just mentioned, the economic harm, the damage to the coalition, the shit he said about you, the staggering, unprecedented corruption, which you've been forced to acknowledge, his personal foibles, his dishonesty, his deceit, his narcissism, his sociopathy. But because you get a very specific thing that you want, now you're singing his praises again? Both sides in the MAGA civil war suck, Megyn Kelly and Ben Shapiro. I just think it's hilarious that they've totally swapped positions and they've totally swapped each other's lines. You're a coward. No, you're a coward. You say Trump's name. No, you say Trump's name. That's where we are. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.